Lynn Mutlapeng was the interpreter in the Boksburg Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg when Bongani Ntanzi made the second alleged confession on June the 24th, 2020. The trial has been adjourned until Friday. She took the stand after the state recalled her to testify.
Are you able to identify those initials?
That is correct.
Yes.
It's for the magistrate, the deponent, and myself. The statement is now read back to the deponent and translated by the interpreter. The deponent is now asked whether he confirms the contents of the statement is correct. The answer is yes. The statement is now signed by the deponent by means of his signature.
The Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga says the state of the N2 National Road connecting Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal remains a cause for concern for many motorists. The road has potholes which authorities say contribute to some of the road crashes. Chikunga launched the Easter Road Safety Campaign on the N2 in Mkondo, Mpumalanga. The aim of the campaign is to reduce road crashes ahead of the Easter long weekend. Chikunga says plans are in place to fix the N2.
But there's already a plan that includes the patching of potholes, but the resealing of the road, in fact the reconstruction of the road. They planned to patch the potholes, but I think what should now happen is the actual reconstruction of the road, because indeed I agree it is bad and it does not reflect the good roads of Central, which we always say they must keep. So yes, there's already a plan about this one road because it's a Central road.
And finally, Treatment Action Campaign and the South African National AIDS Council are leading a march in the Hatfield Arena in Pretoria. The organizations are attempting to put pressure on government to declare TB a national health emergency. According to the Treatment Action Campaign, more than 54,000 people died of TB in the 2022-2023 financial year. TAC's General Secretary Anele Yawa says they are angry that budget cuts are negatively affecting HIV/AIDS related services.
It is against that reason we are having this march to say no to budget cuts, and the National Department of Health must roll out the TB recovery plan, which is not only going to focus in 12 districts, but which is going to be rolled out in all 52 districts of our country. We are calling on the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, as the chairperson of the South African National AIDS Council to provide leadership to combat the spread of HIV and TB, but make sure that we stop TB deaths.
Recapping the top story, Parliament's Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee has recommended the transaction that saw Takatso Consortium appointed as the preferred bidder to acquire 51% of the South African Airways be referred to the Special Investigating Unit. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
When South Africans think security, they think Trilidor. With 6 months interest-free financing and over 54 franchises around the country, you can always find the security product and price that's right for you. Visit trilidor.co.za or call 0861 Trilidor today. Trilidor, the ultimate crime barrier.
Zambia and Malawi both believe they will triumph. However, they must deliver the goods on the court of play. This is the 2025 Regional Netball Qualifiers Africa. Who will conquer the Southern African Derby? All minds are at the Netball World Youth Cup Gibraltar 2025. Catch the superb action at the Rembrandt Hall, University of Pretoria. Zambia versus Malawi, this Thursday, 21 March at 2 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
I'll be still in the quiet, in the presence of my God. Though I'm weak and fragile, I'll lay it at the feet. I don't need to say much, 'cause you know me so well. That's all I need for real. Oh, that's all I need. I do not walk alone. I do not walk alone. This I know. This I know. I do not walk alone. I do not walk alone. This I know. This I know. I'll be still in the quiet, in the presence of my God. Though I'm scared and weary, I won't take my eyes off the light. 'Cause I do not walk alone. No, no, I do not walk alone. This I know. This I know. I do not walk alone. No, I do not walk alone. This I know. This I know. Oh, I don't need to say much, 'cause you know me so well. I'll just wait for your touch. That's all I need for you. We do not walk alone. We do not walk alone. This I know. This I know. We do not walk alone. No, we do not walk alone. This I know. This I know.
It is Jay Something. I do not walk alone on this particular song. I hope by now, the way that we've kind of pumped this song on this particular show, that you've done the things and actually bought it wherever you buy music. A happy Wednesday to you. Today is the last day for the Piscean moon. So if you are celebrating your birthday today, a happy birthday to you as we prepare to wrap up and close off what has been a great Pisces season. Don't ask us what comes after us, Pisces. We really don't care. I'm joking. But yes, we've got a lot of show for you today. We are talking all things. We are going to be talking around how healthy are taxpayers in South Africa. We're going to be unpacking that with Brand Maps director. Just walking us through a survey that they conducted, looking at exactly that. How healthy are the taxpayers of South Africa? Made in SA is coming up today, and we're going to catch up with the founder, manufacturer, and of course the individual behind Nungu Diamonds. As you know, that they are also the diamond house that's crafted the Miss South Africa crown, if I'm not mistaken, for their last two Miss South Africa crownings, and it's a family-owned business. We're going to catch up with them and find out more about them. On the other side of 2 o'clock, in our parenting focus on Parenting Corner, we're taking a look at the effects of strict parenting, and we're going to be joined in studio by individuals that were raised under very strict parenting, including our very own parenting coach, Ayanda Tijani, alongside other parents who are going to be joining that particular conversation. So looking at it from their perspective, now that they are grown and they are adults, having been raised under lock and key and the iron fist of the parents, how beneficial was that? And perhaps maybe even some of the challenges that come on the back of that parents don't really consider when you're still under the throes of just parenting your little ones. Listen, do you shop for nostalgia's sake? Do you buy things because they conjure up certain memories, certain fond feelings? They take you back to a particular time and place, and that is going to be the conversation later on. How nostalgia is shaping consumer choices in South Africa. It is 086 000 2032. That's the number that you can call us on if you want to go live in conversation with us, or 061 410 4107. That is our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note, you are more than welcome to do so. Alternatively, you can also find us on X under at Bridget Masinga is my handle, and of course at SAFM Radio. And as per usual, we are live streaming for you on all of our social media platforms. Let's take a quick break here and we'll come right back.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
Joined in conversation now by Brandmark's Director of Storytelling, Brandon de Kock, is joining me. So we know that in the aftermath of COVID-19, South Africa's middle to top end market are today feeling pretty good about their health. And this is according to the recently released Brand Map 2023 survey, which is a massive survey of South Africans living in households with a monthly income of 10,000 Rand and above, who represent 100% of the personal tax base in South Africa. So basically, they've surveyed everybody who pays taxes. How are you doing, Brandon? You good?
Hey, Bridget, I'm very good, thank you. I can't let your comment pass about Pisces and being on the cusp, because my birthday is on Friday. So do you know how hard it is having the Pisces sort of influence on an Aries? It's like, it's not good, man. I swim in both directions, but I do so with such confidence that it's impossible to ignore.
That's the Pisces in you.
That's me, yeah.
I love it. Well, listen, early birthday wishes to you. And luckily for you, it's a long weekend, so you're going to have a great time.
Absolutely. I've got lots of time to do unhealthy things.
Now, the respondents that were represented in this survey, Brendan, we said 100% of them were taxpayers. And you went on to say that says to us that if they are not alive and well, we are in trouble. Elaborate on that for us.
So, every year on the 28th of February, the SA Treasury Department released this lovely thing called the Treasury Budget Review, which reads like a horror story if you look into it too much. But there's a very, very cool chart in there every year, which shows us exactly how many taxpayers sit in what brackets, how much tax they pay. It's free to download. You can go and it's a public document. And what we see every year, so this year, here's the stat. There's 14 million adults in South Africa who registered for tax.
Okay.
Of them, about 7.4 million pay any tax at all. And less than half of those people pay like more than 50% of all personal tax. So it's a fairly small group of people. It's like 17% of the total adult population are paying all of the personal tax in South Africa. So the work we do is in the top 30% of adults in South Africa, this group of like 13 million of us, or I say of us because I do pay tax, who sit in the group at the top 13 million adults by household income. And if all of the personal tax is paid in there, it means that group is effectively the primary source of income for the government to be able to afford things like social grants.
Yeah.
So the 70% of South Africans who are in desperate need of help, if the top of that triangle, if the taxpayer shrinks up, they're going to be in real trouble. So we obsess every year about trying to, it's year 10 of Brand Map. We specialize in understanding this base. And this year, we put in we think that they're quite healthy in terms of their income and their job stability and stuff like that. It's quite a protected segment of society.
Yeah.
But we thought this year, let's move away from financial health and let's actually ask them like, hey, are you like physically healthy? Because we've always strangely measured that about 25% of all adults are physically inactive, couch potatoes, like 25% of people don't do any exercise. So we wondered what the results would be if we said, how healthy are you? And a very simple question, like I'm in good health, reasonable health, or poor health. And I'm pleased to report that basically 60% of all these adults said I'm actually in good health. About another 35% said I'm in reasonable health. So there's just a tiny little group of people who think or know that they're not in either reasonable or good health.
Yeah.
So at least, it's just a nice positive thought to take into sort of rather turbulent times in which we live,
Absolutely. But then if one is to throw a spanner in the works, Brandon, because you also say that we also have to understand where good health sits in our collective mind and what is meant by that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we could only, I guess we can, once you're into that 2%. Okay,
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You only know that you're not in good health when you find out you're not in good health, right?
True.
So what it's saying to me is that there's basically 5% of the population who have either through misfortune or through, I don't know how often this has happened to you, but in the last 10 years, the number of people that I know who have been absolutely healthy, gone in for a fairly standard medical check and found out that they've got some really serious problems, Things like diabetes are being picked up. They're easier to pick up at the moment, but you have to test for it.
Yeah.
So you can be sitting there with type 2 diabetes for a long time before it's actually picked up. So what this is saying to me is that it's interesting. There's such a big story to be told around this, right? I mean, the chances of you going and finding out if anything's wrong, first of all, you've probably got to be on medical aid.
Yeah.
So something's either got to go wrong or you've got to be on medical aid in order to have your regular checkups. But what it means to me is that at least we know. I don't think that you're going to tick a box saying I'm in good health. If you're not feeling okay, feeling pretty positive, waking up in the morning, bouncing out of bed rather than crawling out of bed, and at least we can say that about 60% of people are like that. The reasonable health's interesting because I don't know what reasonable health means.
Right? Yeah, I get the flu from time to time. Maybe I have a creak here and there, but I'm not landing up in hospital. Maybe I don't know.
Absolutely. And well, funny enough, I did a crosstab on the data and I ran those people in reasonable health, what percentage of them don't do any exercise. And it is much higher. It's more like in the early 30%. It's like 35% of them. So maybe there's a recognition immediately that if I'm a couch potato and I know there's nothing like seriously wrong with me, I don't have a chronic disease or something, at least people who are not doing any exercise are willing to admit that they're probably not in good health,
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of self-awareness involved in this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And now part of the brand map survey was also finding out that 25% of inactive adults are less likely to place importance on fitness and health. I found that very interesting. I just thought that maybe that 25% would say they're lazy, but they do understand the importance of health and fitness. They're just lazy.
Yeah. Well, I think again, it all comes into mindset. I think those of us who have an interest in health assume that everybody is interested in being healthy.
True.
But I think there are quite a lot of people who just don't think about it. It's a bit like the youth issue. If you ask young people how they're doing, generally speaking, young people don't think about death and dying, and so young people tend to think that they're okay. Older people will generally think they're less okay. Yeah.
As we continue our conversation this afternoon, looking at the brand map survey, you segue us into the younger demographic, which were also some of the folks that were surveyed here. And there were some interesting findings there as well.
Yeah, so the young people, I thought what was fascinating about young people is there's a huge focus on mental health at the moment globally, in South Africa in particular, and there's no doubt that young people are more aware of it. So although the numbers we're talking about here, the actual scale is not large, we had about 6% of people under the age of 35 saying that I've got a mental health condition. Whereas when you talk about the older, like the silent generation and the boomers, we're down to more like 2%. So and again, the numbers are very small, but it still tells a really interesting story. I think that I do think there's a younger generation who, well, in the old days, there was more like a cowboys don't cry mentality.
Yes.
Kind of just get on with life and do it. And now we've got a generations who are more aware of mental health, which I don't think is a bad thing personally. I think a lot of people in previous generations took a lot of flack for mental health problems. But the thing about getting older, there's no doubt that as we get older, we get more prone to getting ill, and also you've got more time to find out if there's something wrong with you. So if you look at something like back to diabetes, in the under 35 cohort, like we don't, it virtually doesn't measure as being an issue, like 0% and 0.5%. But by the time you get up to your 65 and olders, like more than 10% of those people are diagnosed with diabetes, which is quite significant, I think,
Absolutely.
So, the survey seems to show that, unfortunately, it's just a fact, as you get older, things are going to go wrong. And also, crucially, you've got more time to find out if something's going wrong.
Absolutely. But I also like, and I don't know if I'm interpreting it correctly, just looking at that older cohort, because, you guys say when you did apply the age filter to the data, right? Obviously, you saw that health does deteriorate as people get older, but at least half of even the retired adults are actually feeling like they're in good health. So I think that also speaks to maybe a certain mind frame the older that you get, and the power of the mind over the body, even if you have the little aches and pains and things are creaking and cracking, but you're in good, sound, positive mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And why shouldn't you be? You know what I mean? If you hit 65 and you've got a hearing impairment, I think you could probably take that on the chin. It's like, yeah, of course I do. I've got a bit of a physical disability, or when you're 35, it's a hell of a lot harder to deal with that if it happens.
Yeah.
So I think that what that happiness versus condition shows is that. Even as you get older, you have an expectation that things are going to get worse, and therefore your happiness is relative to that. So it doesn't mean that you're happy that you've got a heart condition. It means that you can be growing older and getting the things or developing the conditions that come with age, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be unhappy.
Absolutely. I also found interesting the correlation, especially amongst the younger cohort, the correlation between health and healthy lifestyle choices and their ability to afford to make those choices. What does that also mean economically? Does that mean that they're in a better earning position than previous generations of youth?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know whether they're in a better earning position. I mean, we do have a very young, economically active sector in South Africa. Our median age is like 27. The only country in Africa with a lower median age than us is Nigeria. So we have a very young workforce and a very young, quite well-paid workforce, in this area that we're talking about, in the taxpayer base. I think in the BrandMap survey, the median age is actually 39 this year. In other words, there are as many people under the age of 39 who sit in the taxpayer households as there are over 39. So there's no doubt that, yes, there are younger people who have more money, but I think that the better choices thing is that's more a total societal view. If you're sitting in the 70% of people under the 10K household mark, but the vast majority of those people are 60% almost, are relying 100% on social grants just to put food on the table. So I don't think that if you're in that situation and you walk up to a counter and you've got sugar-free or sugar or, low carbohydrate, you're like, forget it, man. I just need to put food on the table, But the moment you have a choice, the moment you are economically able to make a choice, I think that does start a different mindset. So yes, these younger people are probably able to make better choices, and they definitely can afford it. Because I tell you what, those healthy alternatives aren't cheap.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, oat milk. I don't know. Oat milk and squirrel nuts and all of these things. I don't know who the unions are behind these things, but wow, they're like expensive choices. So.
Absolutely. Brandon de Kock, thank you so much for running us through BrandMap's survey for 2023. Lots of interesting findings there indeed. That was Brandon de Kock, BrandMap's Director of Storytelling, and I completely concur. Forking out that 43 Rand every time for 1 liter of oatmeal or oat milk. Rather, it's a lot. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll run into some commercials. And then on the other side of this, we're shifting the focus just a little bit, and we're talking about this ethical dilemma that is sitting in South Africa right now. And it's a conversation around euthanasia and giving people the right to decide when to end their lives. And specifically here in the case of people who have been diagnosed with grave diseases and illnesses that there is no recovery for, or perhaps the ultimate is fatality. And so we're going to have this very sensitive, and I'm anticipating quite polarizing conversation. And really, we just want to gauge where you sort of sit with this question around assisted suicide, the whole conversation around euthanasia. So you can feel free to share your thoughts on 086 000 2032 or 061 410 4107. That's the WhatsApp line.
It has been over 20 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission issued its final report, recommending over 300 cases to be investigated or prosecuted. Truth Be Told tells the story of the TRC by looking at the poignant cases of the Pila Portia Ndwandwe story, the Beki Mlanjeni story, the Ntombi Kubeka story, the Topsy Madaka story, in which the truth has not been told and no one has been held accountable for their gruesome killings during apartheid. Channel your best South African documentary this March on Truth Be Told, Mondays at 9 p.m. only on
Fly better to your next holiday. Book your flights with Emirates to a holiday in Dubai, London, Istanbul, or Paris. Look forward to delicious regionally inspired cuisine, enjoy free-flowing premium drinks, and relax to your favorite movies on the way. Because it's not just about the destination, it's how you get there. This year, fly Emirates. Fly better.
Emotions, tension, and drama are on another level as Namibia faces Kenya. Both outfits are looking for the joy of victory. This is the 2025 Regional Netball Qualifiers Africa. African excellence will book the tickets to the Netball World Youth Cup Gibraltar 2025. Witness the incredible action at the Rembrandt Hall, University of Pretoria. Namibia versus Kenya, this Thursday, 21 March at 4 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Good afternoon, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the National Prosecuting Authority says it's waiting for the High Court in Pietermaritzburg to set the date for the start of former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal corruption trial. Parliament's Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee has recommended the transaction that saw Takatsu Consortium appointed as the preferred bidder to acquire 51% of the South African Airways be referred to the Special Investigating Unit. And Palestinian media say Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have killed dozens of people. They include 23 who have been organizing security for aid deliveries to Gaza City. I'll have details on these and other stories at 2.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So we thought we'd bring this conversation to the table to see where your headspace is in regards to this. You know, from time to time, we take moments to introspect our own selves and maybe challenge our own thinking and our own perspective. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 if you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note. And the question is around euthanasia, assisted suicide. So we came across this article on The Conversation where Sean Davison, who is a euthanasia activist and co-founder of Dignity SA, had recently completed a sentence of house arrest in South Africa for his role in the deaths of 3 people. Now, he had said that he had not committed a crime or murder, but had helped these people because they were desperate to die, and they were diagnosed, they were desperate to die and were suffering unbearably with no hope of recovery and unable to end their own lives, right? And I'm reading verbatim from the article which was published in 2022 on The Conversation. The late South African Emeritus Archbishop Desmond Tutu is said to have at one point or another had written that he would have wanted the option of an assisted death. And in his honor, Sean Davidson, who is the co-founder of Dignity SA, is fighting to change the laws around assisted suicide in the country. And he argues that Tutu had argued that dying people should have the right to decide how and when they wanted to leave this life. Now, legislation in Canada and a few states in the US, as well as some European countries, allow assisted suicide. But obviously, this is a polarizing conversation, and there are still people around the world, billions of people around the world, including here in South Africa, who do not have that right and who do not also want the right on the other hand. And we thought, we'd ask you, where do you sort of sit on the scale? Are you one for perhaps amending legislation in the country so that people have the right to decide how and when they die by euthanasia, assisted suicide? And the conversation is often attached particularly to those that are suffering unbearably from, a fatal diagnosis, which will inevitably lead to death, and that often are attached to severe discomforts and pain and suffering throughout the course of the diagnosis. And it's polarizing. Some people sit on the yes line, some people sit on the no line, and because there's a lot of emotion attached to it, right? A lot of times I guess a lot of us will place ourselves in the position of saying, if a loved one came to you, if a loved one who was diagnosed with some terminal illness and disease and was in excruciating pain, you saw their physical and emotional suffering, you saw the toll that it was taking on them physically, emotionally, you saw the anguish of just getting through a day. And if they came to you to say, I want this option, I want to die on my terms, I want to die on this day, this way, because I want to end the pain and suffering. Where would you be? Where would you be in that conversation? 086 000 2032 061 410 4107 is the WhatsApp line that you can send through a WhatsApp message on, or you can call us on 086 000 2032. And we just thought we'd throw it to you without any said, legal expert or any kind of advocacy body. We just want to gauge from you. Where do you sit on the issue of assisted suicide? Is it something that you've given much thought to? And I guess even that is an opinion on its own, right? If you've not given it much thought and this is the first time that perhaps someone is planting that seed, it would be interesting to just know. 061 410 4107 is the number you can call us on, 086 000 2032. Let's take a quick break.
Buying a new TV? You'll need a paid-up TV license. Need to check your balance? No sweat at all. You just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 for fast, effective balance inquiries. Secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Zambia and Malawi both believe they will triumph. However, they must deliver the goods on the court of play. This is the 2025 Regional Netball Qualifiers Africa. Who will conquer the Southern African Derby? All minds are at the Netball World Youth Cup Gibraltar 2025. Catch the superb action at the Rembrandt Hall, University of Pretoria. Zambia versus Malawi this Thursday, 21 March at 2 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
You can absolutely call us. So while we do this conversation, you can absolutely call us. My producers are standing by. They'll capture and we'll give you a ring back on the other side of this on 086 000 2032. Or you can, in the meantime, send your voice notes on 061 410 4107. Kia Lebucha, aka Lebu Pule, is joining me now, founder and manufacturer and bespoke diamond jeweler of Nungu Diamonds. And this is a family-owned business that was established back in 2013. How are you doing, Lebu?
I'm good. How are you, Bridget?
I'm fantastic, thank you. I mean, should we be saying congratulations now that you've been honored with the title of Advisor Economics Diplomacy by the Belgian Chamber of Commerce? It sounds like a very big deal.
Thank you kindly. Thank you so much. Yes, it is a big deal. Finally, the input of people like myself is going to be considered when it comes to making certain decisions, particularly when it comes to the diamond industry. So, yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah. And I mean, the diamond industry, often one that on the one side, while it's a part of so many of the significant moments in our lives, we're getting married, we're doing this, we're doing that, and diamonds are involved. But it's often also on the other end, quite a contentious topic, particularly in the context of Africa, with minerals being plowed out of African countries and then resold to them. For a black-owned diamond company, how do you sort of plug into this space, but plug into it in a way that you also can affect a change that is necessary for black communities on the continent?
I think you're capturing it so correctly. For the longest time, what's been happening is that rough diamonds, as just one example, rough diamonds are exported. They're sent elsewhere. They create jobs in other countries, for other economies, for the benefit of other people, without the value being seen in countries like South Africa. I mean, yes, we do have a history of diamond cutting and polishing here, but it can be done a whole lot more. There can be a lot of improvements. Botswana, Namibia, Angola are taking a more aggressive position to make sure that diamonds are used for the benefit of their people. And to have people like myself begin to work with governments like the government of Belgium, where Antwerp has long been seen as the center, the world. They call themselves the diamond center of the world. Antwerp has traditionally been the place where all rough diamonds go and they're traded to other centers around the world. Now, what we want to begin pushing for is a position where we say, but Africa needs to say, what are these diamonds doing for our people? Let's begin to get a whole lot more investment coming into our economy from a diamond cutting and polishing perspective, and to be in the room now as an advisor for economic diplomacy, for a person like me to be part of the decision-making processes. I get to inform the perspective.
Yeah.
And I get to speak from the perspective of a black young South African who's an entrepreneur. And I hope this is a positive step, and some of the benefits will start being seen.
Absolutely. I mean, Lebo, you established the company Nungu Diamonds in 2013, and in a very short span of time, you've managed to position it quite incredibly, both domestically and internationally. In fact, in 2016, you became one of 5 companies affiliated with the De Beers Diamond Beneficiation Program. What's been the secret for yourself and your team?
To be honest, it doesn't feel like as quick a time, to be fair. I feel like it has taken long. It's been 10 years or so, since we've been in the diamond business. I think a lot of perseverance. We say in the name Nungu, the meaning of the word Nungu is porcupine in Swahili. And a porcupine is known as a resilient animal. And that's what myself and my wife have had to be in the past 10 years to establish ourselves as what we are now. And we're big on building relationships. The diamond business, and much like other industries, are all about building connections, nurturing relationships that you can depend on to become successful. So, to answer your question simply, it takes only 10 years to build an overnight success, and ours has been a similar story.
Yeah, I mean, you make it sound so easy, but I think a lot of times when we talk to entrepreneurs of color in particular spaces that have been predominantly white, foreign-dominated spaces, we can only assume the challenges that were presented to you just purely just infiltrating the space, let alone then having the capability to own a significant share of the market. Lebs? Oh, we lost Lebo for a brief second. I think probably network just got in the way. We're going to try and get him back on the line because this is an important story, what he and his wife have been able to. He's back on the line. Hi, Lebo.
I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Okay, just to recap, I was saying that, it always sounds easier when particularly entrepreneurs of color recap their stories. But we also know that when you entering particular spaces that have been previously white dominated, been dominated by foreign entities, it's easier said than done. And just infiltrating it presents its own set of challenges and hurdles, let alone then going in and actually owning a significant share of the market.
It's honestly been a difficult process. It has not been an easy one. To your point about how sometimes it sounds rosy, we need to depart from telling only the rosy part of the story. There's been many sleepless nights. I work with my wife in the business, and you can only imagine both of us financially dependent on one business that is as complicated as the diamond business is to build. It's been a tough one. I mean, the only thing that helps is, like I say, how resilient we are. It's a business that is difficult to access capital when it comes to trading in. It's a business that is difficult to access markets in because it's a close-knit business, right? So people have been trading in this business for many years, where you have third-generation businesses. A grandfather has handed over a business to a father who's now handing it over to a son.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm coming in as a new guy. I think what I will credit South Africa for, and sometimes we don't do that a lot, to have legislation in place that insists on the participation of black people in any industry is a way in. And I think our government needs to be credited for that, for creating that enabling environment. But our government should be challenged to say, what more are you doing for in creating people like Leboga? It shouldn't have to take 10 years, to be honest with you. It should take much shorter time if there's funding made available for businesses, if there's intentional marketing initiatives put in place to ensure that a business like ours can get access to markets overseas, in Hong Kong, in New York, in Dubai, because that's where these diamonds ultimately end up, as polished diamonds. So, a whole lot more needs to be done. But I'll say this, man, it's had to be a lot of patience, perseverance, focus. I say this to my wife all the time. So I play tennis 4 times a week. I wake up at 4:30 every week to go to the gym at 5 o'clock every day. This is my way of dealing with the stress of being in the diamond industry, right? So it has to go somewhere. So persistence, focus, and finding ways to deal best, and surrounding yourself with people that are willing to assist also is one magic potion I can suggest.
Absolutely. And we're seeing so many younger generations of black jewelers. I'm thinking of Nigiwe Matebula, who's an incredible designer and jewelry maker, also working in diamonds and precious metals. Axel Diamonds is another one. All of them, in their 20s, early 20s, even just babies. So it's such a long way to go. And I wonder, as you look at these, generations now of black kids infiltrating the space, what would you have preferred to be either in place by way of resource or by way of mentorship in order to just ease the journey a little bit?
You know what? Firstly, it's exciting to see younger people coming into the space, young black people coming into the space. It's really exciting. I think the responsibility is that of people like myself and others who are in some privileged positions to extend a hand to people like that and say, where you need help, let me know. Where you need for me to show you the way, let me know. Where you just need to have a phone call. I mean, I'm relatively close to a guy like Axel, where from time to time we can be on a phone call, talk about what he might need. From time to time, he might need something from him. And this is a way in which this industry has sustained itself, where people build a small community that they work with. The Jews have done that for a long time. The Indians are doing it now in a way of taking the diamond industry over. And we need to learn the same, seek to support each other. So mentorship is everything. And this is something that I would advocate for. Where you can help, be there to help.
Yeah. Now, how does an LLB graduate from the University of Northwest segue into precious bling bling?
Curiosity. I think mine was curiosity, to be honest. I was very fortunate to be mentored by somebody who was in the diamond business, who gave it forward. He paid it forward by helping me, to access the diamond industry. He taught me all I got to know, where I had to get my licenses. But it wasn't because he was just nice to me. It was because I insisted on chasing him. I called him a million times, and ultimately he gave in. And for me, I knew in my second year of studying law that I wasn't cut out to become an attorney. I wanted something a bit more exciting. And I also wanted to do something that was going to leave a legacy different from what other black people had done, to be honest with you. I was just looking for something different. And the diamond industry for me caught me at, diamonds have been mined here for a long time. There hasn't been many black people that play in the space I'm playing in. So by virtue of that, I just got curious. Would I do it again now as I turn 37? Maybe I might pause when you ask me if I do it again, but I'm sure I'd repeat it anything.
No, I get the feeling that you would definitely repeat it again. And sometimes, as we prepare to wrap it up, sometimes, particularly when we talk about, entrepreneurs and innovators who are black or people of color, coloreds, Indians, whatever, it's about exposure, right? Because you might not know that your interest or your passion lie in a particular thing because somebody has not exposed you to it and you don't have a name for what it's called, that curiosity.
And it's so important for other young people to see people that look like them do what we do. So as an example, we sponsored the Miss South Africa crown last year. We want for South Africa to know that a company that looks like ours can play at a stage like that, because some things have only been seen as the preserve of others. And the more we become exemplary in what we do, the more it is that our legacy becomes that of impact. We want for other young people to think it's not impossible to be in the diamond business if Kialebo can do it. Yeah?
Absolutely. Kialebo, thank you so much. I guess your name says it all. Thank you so much to you for the time today. And he is the founder and manufacturer of the Diamond House, Nungu Diamonds, alongside his wife. It's just gone 1:10. We haven't forgotten about you. We see all of your voice notes and, of course, your calls. We've got you logged. We're going to come back on the other side of this and have that conversation around euthanasia, as well as everything else that's on the cards for 2:00.
SACE wishes all teachers a happy 2024 Human Rights Month and calls upon a stop to violence against our teachers. Teacher rights are human rights. Together we can create a brighter future for learners through safeguarding the rights of teachers. #Hands Off Our Teachers 2024 campaign. Proudly brought to you by SACE, the South African Council for Educators.
South Africa gets it that home ground advantage alone is not enough. They are ready to fight hard for the duration of the game. Meanwhile, the Kenyans want to unsettle the hosts by stealing the show. This is the 2025 Regional Netball Qualifiers Africa. The South versus the East. The path to the Netball World Youth Cup Gibraltar 2025. Catch the thrilling action at the Rembrandt Hall, University of Pretoria. South Africa battles it out with Kenya this Thursday, 21 March at 10 a.m. Live on SABC Sports on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Nosaviwa Mapisa says she's innocent. Do you believe she can stay in her position as Speaker after the raid?
Absolutely not. I think, Stephen, we've also got to, as a country, start to instilling a culture of accountability. And to simply say that an investigation is still ongoing, therefore we must allow the process to take its place, it is essentially undermines what it is that a head of this institution ought to be. The head of the legislative arm of our country, who is facing serious allegations of corruption. Her home was raided, which suggests to us that this investigation is not only at an advanced stage, but clearly there's something for the Speaker here to answer. And so our view is that she needs to step down and she needs to resign.
Saviwa Gachube, thank you, the DA Chief Whip in the National Assembly.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m. Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
I'm a tax coach at Tlisani Motaung. The draw, it's dished up at Swane Derby against Mamelodi Sundowns. Doesn't get much harder than that, but at least you are the home side.
Look, one has to give credit to the boys. One has to give credit to the technical management of university for support that they've been giving us. We are where we are because of the support that they've been giving to us. We are drawn against a very difficult opponent, but my attitude coming here, I just told myself who could have been drawn against anyone. It was still going to be a difficult match to play against, looking at the fact that we play the lower division and the rest of the teams, 7 teams, they are in the DSTV Premiership.
Top Sport on SAFM. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good afternoon. My name and surname is Piovisha Mpembe. I am 9 years old. I have 11 friends, and it is sad to say that I am not learning anything from my friends. I say this because where they are, there is always drama and fights, and they are always getting into trouble for going into places they are not supposed to. Out of 11 friends, I have one good one who is kind and supportive. It is also good to learn from others. I teach my friends kindness, good morals, and values. I am also teaching them to listen to each other when they talk. I just know they can do better if they try. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Zonaka Malihasi. I am 10 years old. I live at Midland Zone 7. My school is Tumbezo Primary School. I'm at grade 5. I'm here to talk about learning from one another, friends and peers. Yes, there's something good and useful that I've learned from my friends that is still helping me even now. Yes, I think it is great to learn to each other as friends or peers. I think my friends or peers have learned something from me. I've taught my friends or peers that every Sunday we must go to the Sunday school. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Kabamba. I think one thing I could say I've learned from a friend that was good and useful, which is still helping me today, is actually accepting that it is okay for you to ask help sometimes. It does not make you annoying or helpless. I do really think that it is great for people to learn from their friends or peers. I really do think that I have at least taught one of my friends or peers a little something that they could also find useful, like patience. I believe I used to take time doing things which would make my friends to actually get used to waiting for me. Nowadays, they just wait for me without even complaining.
Hello, my name is Bikhansa Taka. Yes, there is something good and useful that I have learned from my friends that is still helping me even now. Yes, I think it is very great to learn from each other as friends or peers. Yes, I do think my friends have learned something from me. I have taught my friends how to work out sums in maths.
Hello everyone, I'm Lorraine Moyo. I am 12 and a half years old in grade 6. Yes, there are things I learned from my brother. He's always so neat. I now learn to be neat. No, my siblings don't learn from me. I think that I still have a lot to learn myself and can't teach anyone anything yet. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mushfiqa Talib. Even though my siblings are younger than me, I still learn a lot from them, and they also learn a lot from me. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Hello everybody, my name is Tuli Fenomon, and there are also a couple of things that my siblings and I learn from each other, such as how to be more kind, how to be more friendly, and also outgoing.
Hello friends! Are you currently learning anything valuable from your friends? Gaining essential knowledge from our friends and peers can support our growth and enhance our cognitive abilities. As you gain knowledge and understanding, you will gain wisdom by learning from others. You will share the valuable lesson you learned with your peers during interactions. Gaining knowledge from peers. It serves as a foundation of growth and assistance while navigating through school. And this is why friendships are important in our lives. We require a companion with whom we can engage, exchange information, and share both happiness and difficult times. I mean, friends who are able to embrace us for our authentic selves. Having companions allow us to engage in valuable and fulfilling conversations. Always take note that the longer we are around our friends and peers, the more we will notice their imperfections and deficiencies. However, it's important to keep in mind that each person is special and one of a kind. Despite imperfections, everyone possesses a seed of greatness. Learn to look past imperfections and issues. In this way, you and your friends will help each other to bring out their best qualities. Continue to learn from each other in order to build significant relationships. Treat each other delicately, since we are all fragile as individuals. However, if you ever find yourself being targeted by hateful actions or words from friends, don't hesitate to confront them in order to address and resolve the issue. Sit down together as friends and check out what you can learn from such experiences. Be cautious when you're talking to each other as friends and manage what you say. Be quick to mend friendships if there's a rift. Instead of harmful gossip and rumors, focus on building a positive relationship with your friends in order to create a more harmonious and wholesome environment for personal growth and development. As children, you have control over the things you talk about with each other. Always make it a priority that you talk about things that will help the next person or things that your friends will learn from you.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, NPA awaits date for Zuma's corruption trial and case against brothers accused of AKA murder postponed. Good afternoon. The National Prosecuting Authority says it's waiting for the High Court in Pietermaritzburg to set the date for the start of former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal corruption trial. The matter has been adjourned to the 17th of May for a pre-trial conference between the state and defence teams on when the trial should resume. Earlier, Judge Nkosinathi Cili dismissed Zuma's application to have lead prosecutor, Advocate Billy Downer, removed from the case. The NPA spokesperson Mtunzi Maga.
All these interlocutory applications have no merit and they are baseless. Hence, they've been dismissed at the full court level here, at the SCA, at the Concourt, which is the apex court in the country. We've always maintained that there is fairness on the trial of Mr. Zuma. We are just looking forward to now the 10th up to the 17th of May, where we hopefully will have a trial date set so that Mr. Zuma and Thales Company can respond to the allegations, which we believe are a formidable case that they need to respond to.
Meanwhile, Zuma's legal representative, Advocate Dalimpofu, told the court his client had instructed him to lodge an application for leave to appeal this morning's ruling.
So we stand with firm instructions to proceed with an application for leave to appeal, given the ruling now. What we did not anticipate, of course, in those scenarios was this scenario where the reasons are not given now, which the court has dealt with. But I don't think that changes much of the substance of what it is.
Parliament's Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee has recommended the transaction that saw Takatsu Consortium appointed as the preferred bidder to acquire 51% of the South African Airways be referred to the Special Investigating Unit. The committee says the department has not been able to successfully dispute the former Director General Kgatatso Tlakudi's allegation that Takatsu was not part of the initial list of companies that submitted bids. The committee also feels that Tlakudi's submission that SAA assets were undervalued was not disproved in light of the cancellation of the transaction the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan announced last week. Kaya Magakla is chairperson of the committee.
In view of this above, the committee cannot say that a Takatsu transaction was above board, and will in this regard be recommending that law enforcement agencies must do their work in unraveling the truth about this transaction, particularly the alleged forgery of the former DG's signature in the strategic equity partner appointment process.
The Manzini Magistrates Court in Eswatini has postponed to the 9th of next month the case of two brothers arrested in connection with the murder of Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tibelo Tibbs Mutswane. Siyabonga and Malusi Ndimande made a brief court appearance this morning. The prosecutor Mcebo Nxumalo confirmed they received the official extradition application from their South African counterparts. Meanwhile, the defence requested time to go through the application. KwaZulu-Natal police have arrested a 50-year-old man in connection with dealing in drugs. The police were conducting an operation when they confiscated drugs worth 1.3 million rand in Durban, where the suspect was seized. KwaZulu-Natal police spokesperson Robert Nechuhunda.
Police executed search warrants at an estate in Umhlanga in Somerset Park. However, further investigations led the police to a flat on Dr. Prislika Street in Durban, where the suspect was caught with drugs and empty drug capsules, cocaine powder, cocaine bullets, heroin powder and raw cocaine with an estimated value of 1.3 million rand were recovered during the raids. The suspect is suspected to appear in the Durban Magistrate Court today.
And finally, Palestinian media say Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have killed dozens of people. They include 23 who have been organizing security for aid deliveries to Gaza City. Efforts to secure a ceasefire are continuing today when the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visits Saudi Arabia. The BBC's Tom Bateman reports.
Mr. Blinken's talks with Arab leaders will focus on what the US calls the architecture of lasting peace. The Americans are trying to bring together a major deal that would put the internationally supported Palestinian Authority back into Gaza for the first time since it was driven out by Hamas 17 years ago. Nothing has yet been drawn up, but the ideas are thought to include possible support on the ground from Arab nations, while all the parties, including Israel, would commit to pursuing a two-state solution, the long-held international formula for peace.
Recapping the top story, the National Prosecuting Authority says it's waiting for the High Court in Pietermaritzburg to set the date for the start of former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal corruption trial. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Shankana elu ante pisale rato haradi pula liri fifo ante pisale rato tese nako isikai moshankano raile moritana meme puo isikai matsale olaile modisana bona heke haibula homoditwa Hari hutle, bona heke, hai bula, komuditwa, hari hutle, lirato li fedile, keko pari komudibo elesake, lirato li
kopa dikgomo di boele sakeng kgomo tsena ha di boele sakeng kgomo tsena ha di boele sakeng pele le nka hlola e reng ke le qoqele mohlankana yena o ne a kopile mohope wa metsi a lebala fonofono hakaka hara kgetsi a o ka fumana molaetsa jomewe e taba ke tla etsa jwang bona heke ha e bula kgomo di tswa ha di kgutle bona heke ha e bula kgomo di tswa ha di kgutle lerato le fedile ke kopa dikgomo di boele sakeng lerato le fedile ke kopa dikgomo di boele sakeng kgomo tsena ha di boele sakeng kgomo tsena ha di boele sakeng bahlankana ha ba tshepahale bahlankana ha ba tshepahale lerato le fedile ke kopa dikgomo di boele sakeng lerato le fedile ke kopa dikgomo di boele sakeng kgomo tsena ha di boele sakeng kgomo tsena ha di boele sakeng
It is Leo Mele coming through with Lerato Li Fedile is the name of this particular song. I discovered the song on World Radio Day when we had our cross broadcast, and then I broadcast half the show downstairs with David at Radio 2000, and he happened to be playing this song during the course of the hour. Completely fell in love with it. There's just something, I said it on Monday, there's something about discovering new music. It's a different kind of excitement, man. And then when you have the ability to also share it with other people, it just, it just tickles you in interesting ways. By the way, today, in case you didn't know, was World Happiness Day. And you know that on this particular show, we're always trying to be happy, regardless of the conversations we have. We always try to ride the wave at some point and come back to a state of happiness. So it is World Happiness Day today, and I hope that you are feeling the spark and the pep in your step this afternoon. And if you're not, change it. Change it somehow. I don't know what it will take, but change it. Let's try and have a happy day today. We are now going to be talking about the effects of strict parenting, and this is like a conversation that leans more on the personal accounts of our guests, right? And we joined on the line by content producer and lecturer Atenkosi Mdende, who is the person who really is the reason why we thought we'd have this conversation. And Atenkosi wrote a think piece around being raised by strict parents who were constantly shouting and lecturing, where punishment was used at home and in school. And, depending on when you were raised or which generation raised you, if you were raised by baby boomers, then this was probably the norm of your upbringing. So a lot of millennials can probably relate to being raised in this particular way. But I think millennial parents are trying to do things a little bit more different with Gen Zs and Gen Xs. I think we even now down to Gen A again. So it just, it just depends on the generation that raised you. Also joining us in conversation, Unobuhle Manana, who was also raised by strict parents. And of course, our parenting coach, Ayanda Tijani, also joins us on this particular one. Let's start with Atenkosi. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good, Bridget. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Only but a pleasure. So tell me, what prompted you sort of going back into time and the need to examine and interrogate how you were parented and essentially raised by strict parents?
Okay, so for me, it was always interesting when I had my own child, who at the time I was writing these articles, he was 2 years old, and raising a toddler can be quite a job, especially if you're doing it along with studying and also you are working full time. And therefore, as I was parenting, I was reminded to be conscious by my inner child because I've seen these moments when I was growing up when a parent would lash at you, when you are being disciplined, where you don't even get why you're wrong, but you're just getting this anger and you are so terrified. So, me writing these short pieces was just going back to my own roots and seeing some of the things that made me to feel a certain way and be conscious and not to do them or to transfer those things to my son. And that's what prompted the writing of the article. And it was also interesting to find out more because as young as I was, I didn't have the language to it. But growing up now, I started to see, oh, okay. So when a parent is doing this, when they're threatening you, this is how it goes. This is how guilt tripping happens. Because as young as I was, I didn't have the language, but I just knew these are some of the things that I didn't want happening to me and therefore didn't want to do to my son.
And it's interesting for me that Atinkosi, that you say, raising your son, who at the time of these thoughts coming to fruition was a toddler, and it sort of reminded you or ignited in you your own inner child. You became conscious of your own inner child. Does that mean that already before you became a parent, already before you became a mother, there was some kind of residual negative emotions that were already attaching to some of the memories of your childhood? Or was it something that was really magnified and sparked only when you became a mom and you started then drawing those comparisons of you being a mother and how you were parented, rather, let's put it that way, and how you are parenting?
Right. So definitely I would say yes, because I remember also as I was navigating university, it showed up in how I was showing up at school, the not feeling like I'm good enough, the constantly having that voice that says, go an extra mile because maybe your sister wouldn't do it this way, who is more responsible than you. So those thoughts were constantly in my mind in how I show up, and I was showing up to the world, a version of myself that was scared to fail, a version of myself that didn't feel like what I was doing was more than enough, until the person who I felt was a dominant voice growing up would say, oh, okay, you did good here. And for the longest time, I didn't get that you did good there. And so I was constantly trying to prove myself to the world. And when my son came into the picture, I just wanted to correct some of those things. And on top of that, like, I can do say that there are a lot of positive that comes with strictness, because you learn to have rules that gather you as you are growing up. You learn to have a structure and you become more responsible. However, for me, I just wanted to correct the sides that I felt like that was too harsh, and it also made me to fear an older person that I'm with in the room, or to want to prove myself more if I'm in a relationship, for instance.
Was there ever a time in your adult years, as you sat and reviewed the strictness of your parents' parenting, that you maybe the thought crossed your mind, or if it did or didn't, whether they were bad parents at the time in your understanding, or you were able to separate and say they were strict, but they were still good parents?
so growing up, when I was through it, I thought they were bad parent, guaranteed, because all I was looking at was, why are you treating me this way and the other person that way? Because we grew up two siblings and we were raised by an aunt who was trying to juggle everything and provide for us, and we're not her children. So you can imagine, on top of her children, she was really trying to fend for us. And I began to gain clarity as time went on, when I was now trying to be responsible and trying to apply all the knowledge that I was given as a child to then make that decision to say whether they were good or bad parent. I would say I'm where I am today because of the teachings that I got, because as much as it was flawed, but it was more based on the Bible and being principled and being responsible, and it helped me to show up better as an adult.
Ayanda Tijani is also in this conversation with us, and Ayanda is no stranger to the full circle. We often call on her for parenting coaching, and she often leans on the softer side of parenting. But I wonder, as you listen to our conversation this afternoon with Atenkosi Ayanda, I've never asked you how you were parented as a child.
Sure. That's a can of worms, I can tell you. Because, I mean, I think like most South Africans, you know, I grew up with my parents for a certain number of years. We had the soft life, what we may call gentle parenting now. And then I went to live with when my parents separated, then I went to live with my grandparents. And that's where reality struck, like, you know, this is real life. You know, learn how to do everything, learn how to do your own bed and all of that. And obviously you can imagine, as a child who had lived a very completely different life, basically being a little princess, now being thrown into this far deep of now having to do everything, being responsible for things, and it's not even your own biological parents. You hate them, you know. I mean, I think I've gone through a lot of therapy to just deal with that kind of stuff from my own childhood. And obviously that would have played a very big impact as well in why I became a parent coach, in the work that I do in educating parents. You know, the reality is in South Africa, a lot of the people who end up raising children are not necessarily their biological parents. We have extended families that step in, you know, and in many instances they're going through their own stuff with their own children, biological children. But what's important, obviously, is what I always speak about, is like that bigger picture. When you're raising this child, you know, maybe you're upset with, let's say, I'll make an example. Bridget, you are the stepmom. You know, you're upset because the biological mom is calling Baba. There's like whatever nonsense is happening. You know, you want to be very deliberate about saying, I'm the adult in the room, and my relationship that I'm fostering is directly with my stepchild. And then make sure that you're not thinking about, oh, what if they go back to their mother in 2 years' time? All of those little things, but you're being very deliberate to say, how do I make sure that I give this child everything I have? How do I become that reflective parent? How do I become the kind of parent that whatever happens in this child's life, they're going to say, oh, my mom, you know? And it takes a maturity for us to admit the situations and say, listen, I'm going to step up and I'm going to show up.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break here and then we'll come back and continue our conversation. And I wonder, as you listen, were you raised by a strict parent or strict parents? And what was the depths of that strictness? Like, how extreme did the strictness in your household run? You can feel free to give us a shout on 086 000 2032 or 0614104107. That's if, of course, you are not afraid that your parents might be listening to the show today, you know, and they might call and say, yay! So if you don't have that fear, feel free to share some of your experiences with us. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
South Africa gets it that home ground advantage alone is not enough. They are ready to fight hard for the duration of the game. Meanwhile, the Kenyans want to unsettle the hosts by stealing the show. This is the 2025 Regional Netball Qualifiers Africa. The South versus the East. The path to the Netball World Youth Cup Gibraltar 2025. Catch the thrilling action at the Rembrandt Hall, University of Pretoria. South Africa battles it out with Kenya this Thursday, 21 March at 10 a.m. Live on SABC Sports on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Coming up on the book reading, Why Men Had Women.
The use of violence to ensure that these aims were achieved was part and parcel of that centuries-old history. These governments simply could not be trusted, of course. The reality of oppression and cruelty could not remain out there, only touching the surface of our skins. The historical lack of trust in the whites who governed, or rather misgoverned us under duress, would seep into our interiors. And so our psychosocial relationships with the whites were sullied.
Catch the book reading on SFM Monday to Thursday at 11:45 on The Talking Point.
There are new exciting moves for the SABC2 familiar. From the 4th of March, the life-changing game show Deal or No Deal with Katlego Maboy officially moved to SABC2. You can catch it weekdays at 6:30 p.m. SABC2, it's where you belong.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 0614104107. That is our WhatsApp line. Right now, we are having what is a serious conversation, but in a light manner, as we reflect back on how perhaps you were raised. Did you grow up in a strict household? How strict did your parents get, or your grandparent, if you grew up with your grandparents, how strict did it get in the household? And maybe what did that do to you as a person when you sit back sometimes and you just reflect back on your childhood? How do you feel about how strict things were in your household? 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, or 086 000 2032. And don't worry, we're still going to double back to that conversation that we opened up a little while ago about euthanasia. We're coming back to that right after we are done with this one. So you can also still send voice notes on that particular one. And I see you, Unobuhle, out in Joburg. How are you? Oh, she's still coming on the line. How are you doing, Nobushe?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Were you raised by strict parents?
Yes, I was raised by strict parents, married.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up with mama no baba. I hope you guys can understand Zulu.
Yes, go ahead. Be bilingual. It's fine. Yes.
Thank you very much. Where can I start? Let me start on how it affected me mentally. I grew up, especially in my teenage years, that is when they started being really strict. There and there. But I still feel like they could have handled things in a different way.
How strict did it get?
It got pretty strict. By strict, I mean, as soon as it's after school, you don't even think to do something else. After school, you go straight home. After school, straight home. If for example, okay, so let's say Ngepuma go 2:30, at least you've got like 2 hours maximum to travel. If Wednesday and Jewaba late in like 30 minutes, yay, you're in trouble. So I grew up as an anxious child. I've always been anxious. I think that's a reason why. Yeah, it's because depression as well at some point, because strict parents are the I said so because I said so type. So they're not open for discussion or to hear what my point of view is.
Yeah.
Which is, I understand at that point, but like, I wish especially my mom was a strict parent here.
Yeah. And Nobuhle, in fact, Nobuhle Manana is one of my panel guests today that I've invited to share because, as you said, Guti, having strict parents, it played quite the number on you psychologically. At one point, depression, you suffered from depression and anxiety. And I wonder how that also affects you now as an adult.
Honestly, now as an adult, I feel like it's the opposite. Same thing as Usisi that was speaking before me said. Honestly, I feel like I am who I am today because of Abazal Bami. So the way I wanted to be out of home and study, like it pushed me to study harder and just be out of home, be an independent woman. Because being home is so difficult, you feel me? So it pushed me in a positive way, I won't lie.
Yeah.
And it affected me in a positive way. Yeah.
And that's interesting, right? Because, you bring up the fact that there were some positives to growing up in a strict household. And, of course, those positives, weirdly enough, are linked to the negativity of the household. You have the drive, you have the push, but it came about because your motivation was ngifuna ukuphuma endlini.
Yes, that was my motivation. But Sabantu as funny, some other teenagers can, I don't know, it can be a different turn.
Absolutely.
It can be something different. Because thank God, umama futhi wangifundisa ukukhuleka. I think that's one thing that's helped me with my anger. But I grew up ngumuntu one-anger nje ukuthi into encane nje yangikwatisa, Yeah.
Very interesting. Nobusha, stay on the line for me. Our lines are open on 086 000 2032. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to send through a WhatsApp message. We focused right now on the effects of strict parenting. If you were raised by strict parents, what did that look like in your household, and what has it inevitably done to you as an adult or as a parent, parenting your own children? And we are in conversation with Atenkosi Mdende and, of course, Ayanda Tijani also joining us on this one. Let's take the headline news and then we'll come back on the other side of the Silo in Welkom. I see you.
Thanks, Bridget. Good afternoon. I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Pietermaritzburg High Court has opted for a pre-trial process to map the way forward in former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal corruption case. The defense has requested an indefinite adjournment while the state has insisted a trial date be set. A 40-year-old truck driver is expected to appear in the Impangeni Magistrates Court. The suspect was arrested earlier this week when he was found in possession of stolen minerals worth 15.5 million rand from Richards Bay Minerals. And thousands of Polish farmers are holding a nationwide protest against rising costs and competition from cheap agricultural produce from Ukraine. I'll have details on these and other stories at 3.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on this World Happiness Day. I hope you are happy, even though we're reflecting back on our childhoods and how you might have been raised under, a heavy hand if your parents were strict. And Atenkosi Mdende wrote an article. She's a content producer and lecturer. She wrote an article talking around the effects of strict parenting when she became a mom herself and reflecting back on some of her childhood. And I think, as we talk to yourself and Ayanda and Unobuhle sharing her experiences, what's also coming up is that there is a lot of positive that can be associated with being raised under strict parents or under a strict roof. But I guess maybe the differentiator, maybe if a psychologist has joined us in the conversation, the differentiator would be if there was still love and nurturing, and it's just that the rules were the stringent part, but the love and the nurturing was still there.
I mean, come to think of it as an adult, if if it was love, it was tough love. You know that thing of saying, if I'm strict to you, then you're probably gonna toe the line.
Yeah.
Then in that sense, you can say it's love. But for me, it can seem dangerous for a child because you're teaching this child not to know when they're doing the right thing, to constantly second guess themselves, to be anxious, to overdo things and over prepare for everything. Right now, I'm busy with my PhD. I don't know if I didn't have a strict parent who emphasized education and who was always saying study, if I would be here today.
Yeah. Absolutely. And let's look at, and I love the fact that I'm assuming that it's Atenkosi's toddler in the background wanting for attention from mama today. I love it because it also speaks to this conversation that we are having, right, Ayanda? Because you ultimately you are raising a person, or you're trying to raise somebody who's assertive, whose voice and presence is validated, and those are some of the things that maybe are lost in strict parenting, right?
Yeah, listen, I don't agree at all. I don't think that. I know a lot of people who've gone through this will say at least 1 to 3, but the reality of it is that, you know, our parents, obviously, I will not blame our parents because I know that they didn't know better. But one of the things that is probably the hardest that we look at in terms of psychology of people who are raised in this manner, one of the things that Nobuhle mentioned, which is the anxiety, and one which is glaring, which I've heard both from our guests, the people pleasing. You know, you get to a point where you're really scared to really say, listen, what you did to me actually hurt me. What you did to me actually broke me. Now, my biggest issue with this, Bridget, is that throughout our lives, we have relationships with people. We have relationship with our peers. We have intimate relationships. We have relationship in the workplace. And if you do not have healthy relationships to model what is, okay, how do I feel about what you just did to me? I don't like it. I can't speak back to you and say, listen, you know, what you said hurt me, it humiliated, it shamed me. Already you can just see the power balance in terms of that relationship just being so unfair. And in many instances, people who have been brought up in very strict situations tend to have a really big issue in that. Let me tell you, when we talk about psychology, if you look at the Maslow hierarchy, if you're looking at who I become and what I want to become, there's no one who can stop me in terms of that. In fact, as a parent, my job is to, if you think of a garden, for instance, it's to water, it's to provide sunlight, to weed, in terms of the growth of my children. And part of that is teaching the management skills, is teaching our children to dream and say, what do you want to be? So yes, Atenkosi, you might not be doing your PhD, you probably could be doing something else. And I'd ask you, in terms of your day-to-day, how do you negotiate things like your salary? How do you negotiate if someone in your relationship is offending you or hurting you? Chances are that second guessing yourself, all of those issues, unless you go to therapy and really go work on those, you know, you haven't really dealt with. And this becomes such a problem for us as we go. You know, so yes, the strictness of it, the boundaries of it may be great, but I really hope if a parent is listening and this is something they do, that they don't think that, listen, I can brush myself, it's okay. No, it's not okay. Let's teach our children to have views, to have opinions. Let's teach our children that there's boundaries where, listen, there's an extent in which I'm willing to have a conversation with you. There are rules as to how we have certain conversations, you know, and I'm willing to listen to you to some extent. And maybe at certain instances, I'm not going to negotiate. You know, let's allow our children to have, because for me, the home environment basically prepares you for your adult world.
Absolutely.
And if we start being very deliberate to say in our homes, we're going to allow our children to know there's something called respect, right? Bridget, if my son and I don't agree, that's fine. Let's have a respectful conversation. Let's have that in that context where that. So the problem with this type of relationship is It's my way or the highway. I don't even want to hear what you're saying. I don't care. It's under my roof. I'm the one who's the provider.
Let's pause it there for a second. I've held Silo out in welcome, waiting long enough. How are you doing this afternoon, Silo?
Hi, Bridget. How are you?
I thank you for your patience. Go ahead. You were raised by strict parents.
Yes, see, sort of like a military home. So, I grew up with my parents very strict. I mean, my dad was a teddy bear, but my mother was vicious, right? Because we spent most of our time with her. So in terms of correcting behavior, I mean, you knew that if you deviate from certain things in terms of behavior, or I was seen maybe talking to a girl in the street by a neighbor, I knew that when I get home, I'm going to get it. So, but what I did appreciate about my parents was that their strictness and the way they disciplined was more physical. They never used words like to try and break down their kids. Some parents would say things like, "You useless, wara." It's just that I grew up in the township, and there were a lot of gangs around. So my parents' fear was that if you don't focus on school and certain things, you might end up joining a gang. So in that aspect, looking back now, I appreciated that parenting style, and I fully believe that kids should have a certain level of fear for their parents.
Silo, let's wrap it there, Silo, and welcome. A certain fear. Chukulu in Harrismith, how are you doing?
I'm right now.
Oh, is it Tukulu? Tukulu. Sorry, Putwama. How are you? How are you with Tukulu?
No, ngiyaphila.
Ngiyaphila, Ntate. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, no. As President,
yes.
My grandfather. Ke ena motho a kgoneng go godisa, then she taught me how to do things. Without parents. I don't know where my parents were, but my grandfather, she's the one who taught me how to do everything, how to respect. And by then I was thinking that she's treating me bad.
Yeah.
But now I can see she was teaching me how to respect, how to as Bridget, I don't have any problem to do anything that woman can do.
Love it.
That is why even if you don't do things right, I'm telling you straight, I'll see this porridge is not right. And if you can't, I will do. So I'm happy because today, and she taught me how to work hard, and today I can do whatever. I can stand by myself, not expecting anyone to do anything to me. Or I was happy. I can say that situation, unlike this new generation. So the only thing that they know today is to watch, go to the mirror. That's all they know, and they can see daga, they smoking, they doing the wrong thing. That's not right. But
Siyaguzwa Tukulo, thank you so much for that experience. We love a man who can cook and clean and do everything because you must self-sustain, Galogo. Let's go to WhatsApp and hear what's on your mind quickly.
Good afternoon, Bridget. And I think the issue here is the definition of being strict, because I don't think the definition of strict or being strict it's standard for everyone, because what others consider as strictness by their parents, to some of us, especially the 70s, it was standard. It was you needed to respect any elder on the street. You needed to, if you did something wrong on the street, you'll be disciplined by anyone, and when you come home, you report it and you'll get the second discipline. And personally, I think being strict or being raised in a family where parents are strict teaches you to observe rules, and in your adult life you realize that now this world is full of rules, and the more you observe them, the more you become disciplined, and the chances of success are higher in that regard. Kanyan and Milabek. Thank you.
Shalom, this is Wisdom. I believe in parenting, the key is love and understanding the personalities of children. First thing, as a parent, you need to understand yourself. Then you will be able to guide your children. I grew up in a very strict, especially to the men's side, than my mother. And it turned that I grew up with bitterness because there was a lack of love. But I'm so thankful for that kind of discipline. I learned a lot of things. But love is the key. And not putting rules and regulations because you need to understand different personalities of people. They're not the same. Some they enjoy rules and discipline, some they don't. So you need to able to balance those. Thank you. Bye.
It really is a balancing act, and I thought I'd throw it back to my guest as we wrap it up. But looking at the time, and of course, I do want to honor the conversation that we started with you guys around assisted suicide earlier on, because I know that you've been sending through voice notes and you've been calling as well in between all the conversations. We'd wrap it there. So let me say thank you to our guests, Atenkosi Mdende Unobuhle Manana, as well as Ayanda Tijani. I appreciate you always, ladies, and unfortunately, I couldn't say goodbye to you all and give you all the final word, but we'll catch up again on a different day. Let's take a quick break and then we come back, and Aldrin St. Pierre lets us know what's coming up on Beyond the Headline.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
I'm a tax coach at Tlisani Motaung. The draw, it's dished up at Swane Derby against Mamelodi Sundowns. Doesn't get much harder than that, but at least you are the home side.
Look, one has to give credit to the boys. One has to give credit to the technical management of university for support that they've been giving us. We are where we are because of the support that they've been giving to us. We are drawn up against a very difficult opponent, but my attitude coming here, I just told myself we could have been drawn against anyone. It was still going to be a difficult match to play against, looking at the fact that we play a lower division and the rest of the teams, 7 teams, they are in the DSTV Premiership.
Top Sport on SAFM. You are listening to The Full Circle.
Aldrin St. Pierre today, he's channeling his best Ladysmith Black Mambazo look.
Homeless, homeless, homeless.
This is what I love about you.
So it's like, cue.
You just take your cue and you roll with it. Are you good on this world?
I'm well, thanks. So coming up on the show, tomorrow is, of course, a Human Rights Day.
Yeah.
And the FW Declare Foundation annually releases the Human Rights Report Card at 2020. Depending on the year, but they're releasing the 2023 one, so we'll be in conversation with them about some of the progress and regress that we've experienced in the country. And I see the biggest regress is on health, food, and social security, with a dim lookout as well. It says deteriorating during 2023, downgraded 1 grade to very bad. So those are some of the issues that we'll be focusing on when we look at that report card. And then also on the show this afternoon, we will be speaking to Millard Benheim, who is a survivor of the Novel Music Festival. Remember the 7th of October and what happened in Israel, the attack from Hamas. So one of the survivors will be speaking to us. He's joining us at 20 to 4. To speak about the experience, to speak about the trauma as well. But I guess also is because on one end, while people, or some people at least, would sympathize with Palestinians, is also remember that what happened on the 7th of October, because there are people who died, their family members as well.
Were affected,
exactly. So we'll be touching on that. And also, what does a sense of justice really look like? Because the Israeli Prime Minister is saying, wipe off Hamas. Is that the sense of justice that you want? Because with that also comes the deaths of civilians that we've seen in the majority also. So that's one of the stories that we're looking at this afternoon, and also speaking to Jackie. The story just disappeared now. It's just appeared. Okay, so we'll be speaking to Matlatso Muloye, who's the founder and chief executive officer of the Olisiho Kalushi Foundation, as we prepare to observe Human Rights Day. They'll be joining us at 4:45.
Lovely stuff. Looking forward to it. As you were talking about the FW de Klerk Foundation undertaking that study, I thought, interesting.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised by the number of red cards that there are. There are only about 4. So I think, five. Compared to last year, they had 4. So it has increased by 1.
Yeah.
I thought it would have been red right through.
There are some positives, Aldrin and
So they'll be reflecting on
What's
that.
in mind? We are a resilient nation for reasons. Aldrin St. Pierre, the I don't know what member of Ladysmith Black Mambazo coming through between 3 and 6 o'clock. Let's take a quick break and then we come back.
Friend, yes? I nearly fainted when I read somewhere that the GEPF's minimum funding level is at 72%.
Really?
Only to realize that it was in 1996 when the GEPF was founded.
Okay.
I just saw my pension going.
You like drama, hey friend? Sure.
We've come a long way. GEPF's minimum funding level is at 110.1%. This means that the GEPF has 1 rand 10 cents for every 1 rand it owes its retiring members. GEPF members are more than covered when they retire with the GEPF. Tomorrow shouldn't be a worry when today is done right. GEPF, your investment, your future.
Emotions, tension, and drama are on another level as Namibia faces Kenya. Both outfits are looking for the joy of victory. This is the 2025 Regional Netball Qualifiers Africa. African excellence will book the tickets to the Netball World Youth Cup Gibraltar 2025. Witness the incredible action at the Rembrandt Hall, University of Pretoria. Namibia versus Kenya, this Thursday, 21 March at 4 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So we threw this question to you earlier on about, euthanasia, assisted suicide. And of course, we threw it to you because we just came across this article from about 2 years back where Sean Davison, who is the co-founder of Dignity SA, who was under house arrest and recently released, for his involvement and participation in the assisted death of 3 individuals that had, been suffering unbearably, had a fatal diagnosis, and ultimately were going to pass away. And Sean Davison is fighting very, very sort of focused and hard to get the laws in South Africa changed so that assisted suicide can be recognized and isn't illegal. And he says in part he's doing this in part on the back of the memory of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who himself at some point said if that had been an option, it would have been an option that he would have taken, the ability to be able to say when, how and where he passes on. And we thought we'd find out from you what your thoughts were. 086 000 2032 is the number you can call. Marina is in Cape Town, and of course you can always WhatsApp us as well on 061 410 4107. How are you doing, Marina?
Hello, Bridget.
How are you?
I'm actually doing quite well.
Fantastic. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yes. You really treated me this afternoon. It's just a month now since my mom has passed. And the last few weeks of her life, she really, really was suffering. She had lived quite a long life, with nearly 94 years old. And I thought so much about Professor Davidson's work that he done with his mom and 3 other people, and also Archbishop Desmond's sentiments about wanting to be assisted, to pass on sooner than that to relieve his suffering. And I wondered how I could relieve my mom's suffering, because she had lived such a good life. It pained me to see her in so much pain at the end of her life. I even had a conversation with our general practitioner, our doctor who was looking after her. And of course, the legislation does not allow for that to happen. But just a brief little moment in that conversation, I said, I was placed in a situation where I had to turn off the life support for my son who had drowned, and he was being kept alive on life support. And how, it was possible for me to actually do that once the doctors had diagnosed that he was brain dead and that he was not going to survive. So the act of turning off the life support was in fact, an assisted, I suppose, an assisted death, because he would have been kept alive on life support. But there's no other way with our cousin's legislation, that makes it possible for us to do that for, in my mom's case, the elderly.
Yeah.
So thanks for triggering those thoughts and just for us to navigate that space again today.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Marina, and we send you all the love and light. That was Marina out in Cape Town. Let's go to WhatsApp and continue hearing what's on your mind in as far as this conversation is concerned.
Molweni Mathandazwe, this is Ngabs Ekwipala. I've seen people suffering, and that makes their loved ones also to suffer in many different ways, including finances and not sleeping, but not limited to that. So I think if that can be allowed, obviously with conditions attached, it would be actually a good thing, as long as your family, you've got that your family and agreed that no, you can, and maybe via the courts, it will be okay for me. I've seen people suffering for years, knowing that they won't get okay. So they can choose. Thank you. This is Tripala Boy.
My apologies. Both my mother and older sister died of a very debilitating disease. And now my older brother has been diagnosed with it as well. Asked or instructed my son that if that ever happens to me, I would want to be helped. It is a bit emotional.
Good afternoon, Bridget. This is Patricia calling from Gqeberha. Personally, I am for assisted euthanasia. At the end of the day, the end of life is death, and that is guaranteed, that we are all going to die. Yes, of course, we don't know when and how. But when your quality of life is just not there anymore, what's the point? Or you are suffering immense pain that nothing seems to help. And or you're in a situation where you are in a vegetative state. Is that really what you want? To be a burden to your children, to your family, and to anybody after all? Yes, your family or your children may not see you as a burden, but at the end of the day, the quality of life is just non-existent. So what's the point? Okay, thank you. Bye.
Hi, Bridget. When it comes to assisted suicide, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think people have the right to choose whether to live or not. I know that once I start hitting 90 something, and people have to take care of me, I'm just sitting there. Let's cut the cameras, guys. Let's cut the lights. Let's cut the machines. It was good to know you. It was great to live. I would like to I'd use it, definitely. It would be hell if I were to live longer than 100 or up to 100. Absolutely not. So, yeah.
You can always hear our younger listeners. You can always hear our younger listeners. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts on this. It's a difficult conversation, right? It's a difficult conversation because it triggers so many emotions. And it depends, I guess, by the kind of personal experience that you've had with family members or loved ones, like in the case of Marina, in the case of some of our other callers who sent through voice notes. It really just depends on where and maybe perhaps even how you value the end of life, right? Because as our young voice noter says there at the end, is that part of living a life's journey is also coming into acceptance that life ultimately ends. And even though the goal of life is to live as long and as wonderfully as you possibly can and to drink up every bit of life that you possibly can, but it ultimately ends. And some people would prefer for it to end on a high note. Particularly in the cases where when we talk about euthanasia, we're not talking frivolously around just picking a day for you to say, okay, I'm done. But it's, we talk in the context of people who have been diagnosed with incredible illnesses and diseases, whom every day, every minute that they spend on this earth is suffering. It's burdensome on their families. It's physically and emotionally torturous for them to just continue. And so we should, as an evolving society, constantly ask ourselves these difficult questions of where do we sit on certain things? And we don't have to come to answers right here, right now, but we just share our various experiences and we open our hearts and our minds to listen to the likes of Marina, who share their experiences ever so openly and ever so honestly, and put ourselves in their shoes and try to understand that if you were in a particular situation where euthanasia, assisted suicide becomes a topic that is relevant for that situation, where would you want your mind and your heart to be? It's a little bit of a heavy note, but I hope you don't take it too heavily. I hope you take it in the spirit in which it was intended, for us to just open a conversation that you can now extend to the rest of the family. It's always easier when you say, I heard Bridget say, and then you open that conversation and you can have an honest one. We'll see you tomorrow. It's a public holiday for you, but someone's got to keep this little pony show on the road. So we are going to be here tomorrow as per usual between 1 and 3 o'clock. And I hope you did the decent thing and you are thinking of absconding from work on Friday. But we will be here with you tomorrow. And Aldrin St. Pierre takes over between 3 and 6. Enjoy the rest of World Happiness Day. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top story, Zuma's corruption case adjourned and public sector unions to seek new mandate on wage negotiations. Good afternoon. The Pietermaritzburg High Court has opted for a pre-trial process to map the way forward in former President Jacob Zuma's arms deal corruption case. The defence has requested an indefinite adjournment, while the state has insisted a trial date be set. This as the case against Zuma and French arms dealer Thalys began 18 years ago. In recent years, Zuma and his legal team has been accused of employing so-called Stalingrad tactics of trying to delay the criminal trial at every turn. Judge Nkosinathi Cili adjourned the matter to the 17th of May for a pre-trial conference. This after lead prosecutor Advocate Billy Downer insisted a trial date be set.
And we're not amenable in any fashion to go back onto the merry-go-round of timetables and the exchange of papers and appeals on this issue on which your Lordship has ruled today in order to postpone the setting of a trial date. We do not agree to that, and we'll develop that argument properly at the relevant time if we get an application, but now we need a trial date.
Meanwhile, Zuma's legal representative, Advocate Dalimpofu, told the court his client had instructed him to lodge an application for leave to appeal this morning's ruling.
So we stand with firm instructions to proceed with an application for leave to appeal, given the ruling now. What we did not anticipate, of course, in those scenarios was this scenario where the reasons are not given now, which the court has dealt with. But I don't think that changes much of the substance of what it is.
A 40-year-old truck driver is expected to appear in the Impangeni Magistrates Court. The suspect was arrested earlier this week when he was found in possession of stolen